Okay, everybody, a shout out to my favorite product ever. It's called Lucinergy from New BioAge. Why I like it is because it has resveratrol in it, B6, and something called leucine, a low enough dose to mimic exercise. I take 2 in the morning, I take 2 in the afternoon, and it hits all those longevity pathways. It helps push your natural NAD+. And I know you've all heard about this, so stop taking NAD directly. You want to incentivize your NAD so it goes down the right pathway so you can live long, healthy, and strong. Thanks, New BioAge. Okay, everybody, you know I love sauna, and one of my favorite at-home saunas is Sauna Space. Check it out. It's in my bio. You've got to get one of these, even if it's just a little tiny red light you can set by your computer. This is amazing. You will regenerate. It helps with mitochondria health. When you type in Beauty Outlaw in the coupon code, you get 10% off as well. I want you to have vitality and longevity, so check out Sauna Space. It's my favorite red light ever. All right, she made it here. My favorite OBGYN. She's board certified OBGYN and gynecologist. And guess what? She flew all the way down here today because she's my friend. She's my go-to on vaginal health, period. Women's health, testosterone, you name it. She knows it. She came in here to tell us that you need hormones. So I can't wait for you to meet Dr. Maria Keller. She is from Las Vegas, has a thriving practice with women's health, and here she is. Welcome, my friend.
Thank you so much. I am excited to be here because we got to tear down some myths about hormones and dispel these falsities that are out there that are scaring women from, using hormones. And
Absolutely.
I like to say hormones are amazing. I don't think I'll ever stop using them. The one time I did, I got, a diagnosis called breast cancer, right? And we could talk about that at some point. How did that happen to you? And was it caused by hormones? And the answer is absolutely not.
Nope. I agree. But before we get started, I love your story. Can you share with us your history? Because you're a female in medicine, which is another whole thing.
Yeah.
But you're also, I got a different color. Your skin is a little on the shady side, huh?
I don't know.
It's tough to be a woman and interracial, right?
Yeah, well, sometimes I feel like the spook who sat by the door. Nobody knows. So, and maybe that's not a bad thing.
Oh.
So, but I grew up in Inglewood, California. So I'm a Southern California native. People ask me where I'm from. I go Southern California. That's where the accent's coming from. And born and raised there, and went to UCLA as an undergrad. And so came back, left for the University of Illinois for medical school, and I came back because I was a little bit homesick. And was at the King Drew Medical Center, which is, part of UCLA now. And maybe not, I don't know. I don't even think it's anymore. My residency program is gone. But I trained in a battlefield of, learned a lot of what not to do. And had to go through a little bit of a recovery after that. The county system can be a brutal, it was back then, they could do and say whatever they, these words like gaslighting, they didn't exist. Our attendings, they did not use Vaseline. Let's just say that. So
it was a tough world.
It was a tough world, and it was male dominated, and women were, coming into the field by drones because women wanted women, but it was still dominated by men. And back then, residents we didn't have a say-so. I think I was in the hospital 80 hours a week for sure, whether I was awake probably
brutal
the majority
days. Those were
of
the brutal days before they put caps on it.
Yeah, but I'm going to tell you, we came out knowing a lot. Sometimes I look at residents now, and I've even asked colleagues, and they'll say that they're nowhere trained to the level that we were. So we were, I didn't realize it, but I served my time there. It was like military almost, and came out with PTSD as well. Didn't know it though.
Didn't know it till later.
Didn't know it till later. Yeah. I remember when I was an intern, one of the attendings for Christmas, she gave us all prescriptions for Prozac.
Well, nothing's changed.
Yeah, so
Gynecologists are still giving women prescriptions for Prozac and Lexapro.
Yeah.
It's
Back
your
then, she was giving
hormones.
it to us for depression. And we were all, it's hard to know you're depressed when you're around a bunch of depressed people. So when your whole family, and that becomes your family, I didn't have a first name. I was Anderson. And so that was, my maiden name, even though I was married. And I had the nerve to show up pregnant. And that was, I didn't ask permission. So they were quite upset with me for showing up pregnant. And it was one of those kind of things that happened. I actually tried to prevent it. I did the worst thing you can do, ladies. Don't ever do this. Run and get a douche bottle. I gave that sperm a ride right on up. So it was funny because I kid you not, within 72 hours, I heard a bell go dong. And from the top of my head to the bottom of my toes, I felt this sensation and I heard, "You're pregnant." And when I heard that, it came with a sense of peace that I knew, okay, Maria, don't panic. You're supposed to have this baby. Mm-hmm. So, and it made for an interesting internship, being pregnant if you're in a department where all you deal with are pregnant women, you don't get a lot of support and sympathy. So, because everybody's kind of like, I don't know, where we ignore that. We've seen it so much. And when I went to other departments, I got away with murder sometimes, like the surgery department. When I rotated through there, they were like, "Oh, she's pregnant. She doesn't have to do act." They gave me a pass. They didn't make me work in that ICU. So that, all night long, which was like the scariest thing to be, on call you're an intern and you're all by yourself trying to, keep people alive. And they're all gunshot victims. So back then, that was county hospital, LA. And that's what was going on big time. Lots of drive-by shootings, and here I'd be trying to get like a little simple DNC done, and they're hanging the 12th or 13th bag of blood trying to save somebody's life, and I'm begging the anesthesiology because I need to get this lady to surgery so she doesn't die from a miscarriage. But in comparison to what they were dealing with, and then when their patients didn't make it, watching how their brains all turned off, and then they went to the next thing, and you don't realize that's a trauma that you're going through. So again, I came out.
There's your PTSD.
Yes, there's your PTSD. I didn't realize it until I saw Saving Private Ryan, and I didn't cry. I just kind of dissected it after residency. And then a year later, I saw it, and I cried mainly because I didn't cry the first time I saw it. So, Woman on Fire. I've been her.
Woman on Fire.
I've been
Which
her.
then transitioned you over into... Did you do private practice afterwards? Or?
So when I left, I was married, and my husband had a job opportunity. He went to Portland, Oregon. So I did a long distance marriage with a child, and that was really tough because we both missed him very much. And he was in Oregon, so I took a job with Kaiser Permanente in the Northwest. And I did that for about 6 years, and then I kind of just knew I was a potted plant. Meaning that I could never come out and put my roots in the ground. I knew I couldn't stay in Oregon, even though I loved it, but the weather was depressing, and I never met so many people on antidepressants in my life. I mean, when I met this pastor who was on antidepressants, I was like, "Oh, what's the name of your church? Because I'm never going there." And so I knew I had to leave, or else I was going to end up on something, on medication, And so I had family in Las Vegas, and I'd come there for a conference, and I thought, man, this would be a really cool place to live. And I had a girlfriend who was my third year, my second year, she came a year behind me. And she said, we're hiring. And so it took me about a year to finally get there because I tried to do everything to stay where I was. But I knew I needed to leave. There were a lot of things that were coming to an end that I didn't see, like eventually it would be my marriage, that sort of thing. So when I transitioned, though, to Las Vegas, it was also for my children so that they could have birthday parties with family and
sunshine.
not all friends. We could just drop, put them in the car and we could ride down to LA. And in 4 hours, we're around family. And so that was really important for me, for my children to not grow up with friends, but to grow up with family and lots of family. That's how I grew up, with lots of cousins and, big parties and just all the things that I think helped to make me a well-rounded person. I wanted that for my children. And so I went from one HMO to another HMO. And what I realized was that I was a rebel. I didn't realize it, but I was a rebel. I was bucking the system. I didn't want to listen and follow the directions. They were telling me what I couldn't do in medicine. Like, you can't give the patient this IUD unless if she has heavy periods. And I knew that the Mirena IUD was the best IUD to have. And I'd had the copper one and I was bleeding to death with that. So I'd gotten one. So I knew that this is what my patients needed. So, to have conversations with people like, so in order for you to get this IUD, which is the best IUD, you have to have heavy periods or I can't give it to you. So do you have heavy periods? No. Okay, let me explain this to you one more time. In order for you to get this IUD, you need to tell me that you have heavy periods. And so they would go, oh, yes, I do. So, it was one of those things because I was always, and this was part of being a Kaiser doctor in the Northwest. It was all about the patients. It was all about doing what was best for people. And now I'm in an environment where it's what's best for the profits of the company, right? And I never worked for an HMO like that. And so then I realized I needed to get out of there. Within 2 years, I left. And so long enough not to have to pay that moving back money. Sorry, but that really is the truth. Because, they paid to move me, to Las Vegas. And then I went into private practice. And so from private practice, I said, I ended up realizing I was kind of getting I never had a lot of deliveries, maybe 10 to 12 people a month. But then I was getting tired of that. And I didn't realize I started a concierge OBGYN, and that was unheard of. Me and 2 colleagues, we started doing a concierge OBGYN, meaning you paid a premium above. We were written about in the Las Vegas Review, like bad doctors, how dare they charge, more. We already knew about the MD VIP, so we kind of thought, well, why can't we do something? And so we called it Platinum Mommies. And
love it.
And it was hard with me though because the kind of care I was giving, I was already giving to my patients. I was already giving them my cell phone number. I mean, I got more patients in my phone than I do people who I know. A lot of people I know are my patients. And so, but I then came to realize that I needed to do something else, and I stumbled upon bioidentical hormones. And that's what opened up the door to bioidentical hormones, because my patients were coming back to me and they were seeing Dr. Izzy out. He's an OBGYN in Beverly Hills. And they were like, Dr. Keller, those hormones you gave me, those didn't make me feel so good. But, I've been taking this one. And ever since I've been taking this, I feel so much better. You're a good doctor and I know you really care. But that stuff you gave me made me worse. And I was like, what? It made you worse? Well, let me look at this. And so it was different terms. Like, I knew what progesterone was. But I didn't know what biest was. And I was like, estrogens, what does this mean? And so I called the compounding pharmacy that they were using in Nevada called Partel's Pharmacy, and they were using all these terms. Oh, yeah, you can get some DHEA, some pregnenolone. And I was like, oh, my God, what are all these words? I never heard of this shit before. So, and I had a colleague who was doing saliva testing, and she was a ER doctor. And when I asked her, well, what are you doing? She said, well, it's a secret. And I said, well, how you going to have a secret? I'm an OBGYN. There's no way you can know hormones better than me. So then I took a course, which happened to be in Portland. It was with ZRT. And boy, when I got there, I felt like
was blown.
My mind was blown. And I heard Dr. Wilson speak, who wrote the book on adrenal fatigue, and I started seeing my patients, like all these women who were coming to see me, and I was like, well, your labs are normal, this is fine. Is that, no, it's got to be something. And I'm like, maybe you're primary care, because I was trained if the labs were normal, don't treat the patient based on symptoms. The labs are normal. The patient must be crazy. If what I'm doing doesn't work, then something's wrong with you.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing's wrong with me, because I know I'm the doctor and you don't know. And I know better than you.
Exactly how they talk to you.
And that's how we're spoken to.
Mm-hmm.
And it really, around that same time, I met a naturopath. Got to give you a shout out, Dr. Anthony Beck. And he came to Vegas, and I was looking at vitamins. He's like, well, what vitamins do you give your patients? And I said, I don't know. They all about the same. Whatever them prenatal ones are in the damn drawer. Just look, right? And so he looked at me. He said, bullshit. And I said, I don't even know this man. And he's like
calling you out,
calling me out. And he's like, my breath doesn't stink, my feet don't stink, and my face is pretty. And I looked at him. I said, well, your breath doesn't stink and your face is gorgeous. And I got stinky feet for the first time in my life. And that's what caught my attention, to start learning about what would come to be really functional medicine, but understanding nutraceuticals and why they were important and why they weren't all the same. The ones that I was getting from Big Pharma, were not the same as the ones that I would come to discover and learn about. And so from there, I saw an ad, and this ad was about hormone pellets. So I thought, well, maybe I should learn that. And this lady, who I didn't know who she was, Rebecca Glazier, the best person I could have ever met. Thank you, Dr. Glazier, who would help to save my life. And this breast cancer surgeon who's giving women hormones. So I thought, well, let me go. She said, if you come to Dayton, Ohio, I don't have a course coming up, but I'll teach you. And I said, bet, bought a ticket and went. And when I got there, she said, oh, I don't give women estrogen. They don't need estrogen. They need testosterone. I said, to who? Testosterone in women? And by the end of, her showing me how the pellets are done and talking to the different women and everything, I was convinced. And she said, we're going to give you a pellet before you go. Okay.
Yeah.
If I'm going to tell someone to do it, I need to do it. And 2 weeks after I got back, I was crying. I felt more like myself than I ever had. And I was like, how come nobody told me about this shit? I lost 10 years of my life because I needed hormones. I was 45 then.
Oh, you needed
and
them
I knew I needed them after that last baby. So, and that was 35. And so, and I felt like I'd lost 10 years of my life because I felt more like myself than I ever had. And this is 15 years ago. And so I built my practice looking for women like me, looking for women who were struggling with sexual issues because we weren't trained to ask those kind of questions. And the only medication we had was something called estrotest. And I never forgot the one patient who had a hysterectomy, and it was the biggest regret of her life because her sex drive was never the same. And so, and I always kind of wanted people to be able to have great sex. I always say he didn't marry us to be a roommate, right?
Right.
It's to have sex.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's a big part of it. And so sometimes when I'm speaking to women, that's something to remind us of. But when this hormonal change comes upon you at whatever age. It could be 35, it could be 55, it could be 65. It really differs from one person to the next. I've not pigeonholed people in boxes. And it has to be a certain age that this occurs. But when that started to happen, I realized that there were a lot of women out there who were suffering, and I was considered, by my colleagues, they would say things like, I will not turn you into a man. And I would tell my patients, do I look like a man? Do I sound like a man? I'm not a man. I can think like a man, but I'm a woman. And so first, and I always say, think like a man, act like a lady. We all know that from the book written by I'm blanking on the comedian's name. What is his name? You guys don't.
I should know. Shouldn't I?
Come
We're
on, you
close
guys,
to
help
the
me
same-
out.
oh, they're too
He
young.
has
They're-
a he has
this
a he
team's
has a
never gonna
TV
know.
show, and it's where people like try to guess stuff. Oh, Steve Harvey.
Oh,
That's
Steve Harvey.
Yeah, his book.
He said that?
So yeah, that was part of what was in his book. You know,
Oh.
that we should, and I think Ludacris said it too. So you want a lady in the street, but a freak in the bed. And so and I love to help women to get. I coined it getting your sexy back, because that's how I felt.
Yeah.
I felt sexy. I was
Tapped into your feminine side again.
that I'd lost, and I
Mm-hmm.
used to have a lot of confidence, and growing up in Southern California, wildlife to me was high heels and a miniskirt, and basically going to clubs, and you do all that stuff when
Yep.
you're young. And so, and I lost that. I morphed into this mommy, and I lost that part of myself. And so it was refreshing. And like I said, I felt more like myself than I ever had. And so I started taking all these courses, everybody. I went to everybody's courses to learn, and I'm still that way. I think I'm a forever learner. I don't care who I'm learning from. It doesn't matter to me. I don't care if you're a naturopath. I don't care if you're a chiropractor. I don't care,
You got something to
if
teach,
you're
I'm ready
a
to
nurse
learn.
practitioner.
Mm-hmm.
My ego is not so huge that, I would say, well, I'm a medical doctor and I'm not listening to some chiropractor. When I hear about healing and people getting people well, that is my ultimate, I realized really last year, that I was born to be a healer. And that is, my job. And that Dr. Beck said to me one time, I was complaining about a patient because I couldn't figure out what was wrong with her. And I said, well, she just wants to be sick. And he said, that's what's wrong with you doctors. You all blame the patient. It's your job to be CSI, to figure out what's wrong with someone. And I was like, it was a big, slap, just like he said to me. And you gave yourself that breast cancer. And I was like, damn. I was mad. I hung up and got off the phone. I probably gave him the middle finger because I was upset.
Yeah.
But I came to realize as time would go on, he was absolutely right.
Mm-hmm.
My mindset is what caused my immune system to break. And so again, that's part of me helping other people, males, females, it doesn't matter. Our mindset is extremely important. And I believe it's the reason why second to lung cancer comes breast and prostate. Those are affairs of the heart. Those of us who've had broken hearts, things that in our love language wasn't like, we didn't hear what we needed to hear. And we walked away from that broken. And so that's part of helping people to understand so that we can heal. Because that's part of the healing. You could take all the drugs in the world, but if you don't heal where it came from, if you don't get to the root cause, which was my mindset, you'll break.
What year was this? Was this after this was way after the woman?
Yes, WHI came out in 2003.
This is important. Listen,
and so,
everyone.
that was when I was a resident, 93 to 97. We gave out Premarin like it was candy. So when I came to Kaiser, I was like, take this little burgundy pill.
That's a synthetic
yes.
progesterone.
And my patients in Oregon were telling me, Dr. Keller, that comes from horse pee. And I said, it's natural. That's not natural. And then they had concerns about the horses and how they were being raised. And I was like listening to my patients because they were educating me. Right? And, it's like I said, I want to learn. So if a patient is telling me something and they're like, hey, that progesterone you're getting from the regular pharmacy, it's got heavy metals. Let me show you the breakdown. And I said, I didn't know that. I want a compounded one. Okay. And that's when,
shift started happening.
The shift, you have to listen. It's really, for me, I've learned a lot from people, from patients. And if you don't take your, blinders off, and I felt like that's what testosterone did. Before testosterone, I was like in the store, like, I just need to get to get out the fucking
so
way.
Pissed.
I was always just so irritated. And then and it was like I was smelling poop every day. That look of like we see it. And, which is why my patients, and I'm sure yours, they become your best referral because they can see it in other people. And, if we were to, when we get to it, start talking about individual hormones like progesterone. Progesterone is so many women need this hormone. I mean, it's so safe. You can get it at Sprouts.
Dr. Maria, I have to point this out too, because I get it all the time in my office and it drives me crazy. Is women have their uterus removed and they think they don't need progesterone.
Oh, yeah.
Their doctors tell them that.
Yeah. Oh,
that
yeah.
is not true, right? Can you correct us?
I'm going to teach you hormones 101 the way every OBGYN learns it. You having hot flashes? You having hot flashes?
Yes,
Oh, yeah.
yes.
Okay, you got a uterus?
Yes.
Tell me no.
No.
Okay, all you need is estrogen. And so, because we know you can't get uterine cancer if we give you estrogen by itself. And you know how they learned that? Because they were given, I remember when I was a medical student, there was a lady having a hysterectomy. She had uterine cancer because she was taking estrogen unopposed, meaning not with progestin. So when they figured that out, they came up probably with Prempro, right? Like, now the doctors who knew better, who were doing, more holistic medicine, they knew to give women both hormones. And there is the occasional woman who can't tolerate progesterone, but they tend to be the exception and not the rule. And sometimes as they get older, they may be able to use it just because you can't. I had my girlfriend, Mary. Mary was average age of menopause is 51. Mary's 58, 59, and she's having very heavy periods. So I put her on progesterone, and it made her mean. So that didn't work. So she went through the menopause probably 2 years later, and then she's now starting to have hot flashes and night sweats. She still had that progesterone, and she took it, and she was like, I need you to send me a script over. So here's, case in point, someone. But yes, you want to do the balance. It's a balancing act, and so the thing about progesterone is it does so many things. You never know what each individual is going to get out of it. There was one time my daughters and I were like PMSing and we were having a fight, and I had a homeopathic progesterone, and I was like, "Open your mouth!" And they were like, tsh, tsh,
and you calmed right down.
And within 20 minutes,
you can rub testosterone cream on a crying woman, and she will stop crying. It's crazy.
Or give her a shot.
There you go. Hi, everybody. This episode is sponsored by Pretty Girl Cosmeceuticals. These products are the best. If you're not using them, you need to use them. You can contact JKH Aesthetics anytime, and we will give you a consultation about how to use these amazing products. We have Glow Girl and Ice Drops. These will keep you young, healthy, and glowing every day of the week. And now, back to the episode.
So, hormones are amazing, and often we get diagnosed with things like anxiety. Guess what? The lack of progesterone can cause anxiety, depression, mood swings, irritability, lack of sleep, hot flashes, night sweats. We all know, and you could be having hot flashes and night sweats. I started when I was about 39 or 40 is when and I would still have my cycles every month. And it would always be the change of seasons. I figured this out. There's something about the barometric pressure when we change from cold to hot or hot to cold that will start women coming in the door. For the first time, they'll start experiencing hot flashes or night sweats. And what drives me nuts, I recently had a patient, Miss Jackson. Sorry, Miss Jackson. I wanted to kill the OBGYNs who refused to give her hormones because by the time she saw me, she was batshit crazy. And she was begging for hormones, and they did not want to give her hormones. And I thought, why would you not give this woman hormones? You allow her to go an extended period of time without any hormones. And they were offering antidepressants,
Lexapro,
Prozac, all of these meds, and as well as and when they did give her hormones, the lowest amount where she wouldn't really get a benefit. Like, I don't know, I think it was 0.5 milligram of estradiol, which if I have somebody who's real sensitive, I'll start that low. But usually I'm about, let's put this fire out, and estrogen is so important for cognitive function. I mean, it is extremely important for the brain. And they knew when that WHI study came out, we had women lower rate. We saw dementia improving, bone health improving, less osteopenia, less osteoporosis, cardiovascular disease improving. And I'm telling you, when I first started doing all these things, I wanted to make sure do no harm. So I was doing all these cardiovascular markers, anti-inflammatory, because I had to prove to myself that I wasn't doing any harm to patients. And then when they started dragging in their husbands, I was like,
yes, let's talk about men. So what happens to men? We know women
menopause.
We lose it.
Menopause. They get moody. They can get irritable, just like women. Tired, a lot of fatigue. Come home from work and just fall asleep in the chair. Grumpy grandpa, just like a grouchy grandma. So less interest in sex, and less morning erections, noticing changes in that way. And I never tell men that testosterone is going to be the end all be all, but my youngest patient now, 21, and was low T, and I've got him on testosterone, and he came in with the biggest smile. So, and I just love that. I love that because
you should have that, especially at that age.
Yeah, to be
We're
21.
seeing a lot of young men that are lacking testosterone.
Yeah.
And there's something to be, there's rumors
It's
about
the
why
food.
that is. Absolutely.
It's gotta be the food.
It's the food.
It's the food. I mean, imagine if your mom ate nothing but fast food while she was pregnant. And so then you come out and, kids will be screaming for Happy Meals at 2 and 3. So if you grew up with parents who didn't cook, and so that may have something to do with it. It can't be all of it, but I think it's a big part of it, nutrition.
Agree.
But to see that happening. And so one of my patients, after her husband comes in, he's like, can you give me some testosterone? I said, why? He said, after everything you did to her, I got to keep up. I said, yeah, you do. And so let me take the courses. Let me go learn. And the more I read the literature, testosterone for men lowers their risk for cardiovascular disease. It lowers the cholesterol, the LDL cholesterol. It lowers inflammation. It causes weight loss in men. Now, ladies, I would love to tell you it's going to cause weight loss. You're going to have to hit the gym. You're going to have to run. You're going to have to figure it out. It is not easy for us. But hormones do make a difference. And that's the reason why when women hit menopause, they start complaining of the poochie belly. I'm gaining weight in my, in my tummy, and for the first time in my life.
If they start early, so I started my journey early. I was privy to a naturopath who I adore, Dr. Julie Harden, and I supported my hormonal health. If women can do that and they start early, they can keep vaginal wellness alive, right?
Absolutely.
Their vaginal openings so that it's soft and juicy.
Well, that may sometimes that doesn't hit you till later. So you can have somebody on estrogen and progesterone, and then it doesn't jump the gate and get down there. So so then you got to give them something inside of the vagina. Right. So but there's the thing that I learned in doing pellet therapy. So pellets are basically bioidentical, and they've usually from a wild yam. They've done chemically structured it so that it resembles testosterone or estrogen. And so, and what they do is they're inserted under the skin, right? And it's just a slow release. Not necessarily the perfect thing for everybody. Some people don't like the idea of something being inserted in their body. And I always tell women, it's your world and I want to live in it. What do you want to do? Because if I do what you want to do, it's going to work. So, and if you come to me and you tell me nothing works in me, then I'm going to agree with you. And I'm going to say, I don't think I can help you because you just told me nothing works. So I've learned, I used to think, I can make changes, I can make people better, but really it comes from within. Yeah. Change always comes from within, us wanting it. So, it's just like the same thing the Dr. Beck, when I met him, the naturopath, he was like, Maria, I don't believe in disease. And so that was something totally opposite of what you learn when you become a physician, right? You learn about diseases and you believe in diseases. But I have to say now I've learned to not believe in all these diseases, that a lot of things can be reversed if we get to the root cause of why. And that's the functional medicine
Yep.
perspective, and where we start talking about longevity medicine. So my practice is called Live Agelessly. And I really felt like it was given to me. It was a gift because I was sitting there and I knew I wanted to have a business and I didn't know what to call the business. And I was at Starbucks and I bought this book called Five. And it was about a 5-year to develop a business plan. And I said, I just want to live. I want to live agelessly. And
There you go.
there was the name, and GoDaddy, nobody had it.
You bought it.
I borrowed it. And I even had someone, she had a skincare line. She tried it. She said, oh, I just want to use it for a school project. I was like, no, it's mine. You can go somewhere with all that, right? And so, but I knew one day, that the time would come when I would launch my, bioidentical hormone practice. I started initially because I was learning it, doing it through insurance. I had 2 colleagues who told me I would never be successful at doing bioidentical hormones, that I'd never make any money doing it. And I was like, I don't care because I really like it.
This is where I can help people.
And when I had a patient, my first patient who did hormone pellets, who said, Dr. Keller, I just want to tell you, if it wasn't for this testosterone, she had done a pellet. She said, my marriage would have been over. And I just had tears in my eyes. And I was like, I can't talk to you right now, because I was just like, I was so happy because I looked at it as like, oh, yes, let's have sex. But you don't realize that testosterone is more than a sex hormone.
Yes.
Okay, it kind of gets that thing. But what it helps with is a level. It helps with intimacy. It's nice to be sitting next to your partner and you're
like
at dinner
when they touch you?
and they touch you, or you're like, or you're saying to them,
Yeah.
like you're like telling them what you're going to do, and they go, ooh. And
You
as
feel
opposed
it through
to
your body.
yes,
Instead of being numb.
Yes. No, I would, before testosterone, I would be sitting there, he'd be looking at me, and I go, oh, I know what he's going to want to do. Okay, I got to get a headache. I need a stomach ache.
Yep.
I'm going to
start to
hurry up and get
plan.
in bed. I started planning. And then, I started looking for women from the symptoms that I had. So where I was like, I called it drifting. So I'd be, we'd be having intercourse. I'm making all the noises, But meanwhile, I'm thinking, did I push start on the dishwasher? Oh, what? You know what? I got to make sure I tell so-and-so such and such. What time is it? Oh, yeah, we'll be done in about 10 minutes. I mean, I'm there. It was like my body was there, but my mind was on the other side, outside that bedroom. And I didn't know how to bring myself back in. I mean, I just developed this habit, or I would get to the point of having intercourse, and then afterwards I go, I really like this. How come I don't want to do it? And
You didn't have the driving force once you were in it.
I tried to do it once a month. That was a mistake. That was so painful. I said, never again. Okay, at least once a week. But,
The more you use it,
yes,
right? The more you enjoy it.
I mean, the thing is that my patients called it a slow oven to warm. And I said, huh? They said, Dr. Keller, once I get all revved up, I want to, but it's that getting me to that point. And that's where, sometimes when I'm looking at women, I'm asked, are you a slow oven to warm? Like you want to, you don't realize you like it until it's all said and done. And you go, how come I don't do this more?
So I want to talk about that part too, when we start to lose that estriol and things get dry and they're painful, because that happens to women. And maybe they're dialed in even with their hormones. But there are some wonderful longevity treatments out there that women can do. And one is called the O shot, the orgasm shot. And can you explain? I'm a big fan of PRFM and PRF and PRP. Can you please explain what this is and how it can help some women in that area and men as well?
So before I learned about the O shot, I went to a conference and I learned about oxytocin, and I called that the O shot,
favorite.
Right?
Oxy.
So, and I remember the guy that was giving the lecture. It was a room of 400 people, and I'm asking my girlfriend, what kind of orgasms is he talking about? Is he talking about vaginal or clitoral orgasms? And she said, I don't know. So I raised my hand. Room of 400 people. He calls on me. I said, can you tell me what type of orgasms are you referring to, clitoral or vaginal? He said, vaginal. And I said, what's that dose again? because I knew there were lots of women who could have
Oxytocin.
clitoral orgasms but not vaginal orgasms. And then I was looking online.
I hope everybody understands what we're talking about. So there's penetration,
yes,
which is vaginal, and
right.
then there's
Right.
manipulation on the
outside,
on your
clitoral, the
yeah.
clitoris versus,
And that's the
and
only
what
way.
I had to train women to understand is that vaginal orgasms, you feel it in your vagina, but they occur in your brain. Which means you can have 100 of them, 1,000 of them. It's all in how it's mind control. It's really a release. So, which is amazing because I met a man and he was like, "Why are you so fixated? Don't you know your whole body can be a G-spot?" Because I was like, my G-spot, I'm discovering all these things after I'm divorced because, I'm really felt like I was a virgin until I was 50. But that's another story. But, trying to discover about sex because no one teaches you that sort of thing. I mean, sex education from my mom was like, don't do it.
Yep.
Because she thought of it in one way. You get pregnant, you have a baby, and that's why you don't want to do it. But the O-shot is where I was trained by Dr. Runnels, the inventor of the O-shot, and I was really, really intrigued by him and still am. Love him to death. Just can't say but the most wonderful things about him because, there was a woman, whoever this woman is, we need a statue of her because she did the first one without anesthesia.
Oh, holy moly. Okay,
Right?
so explain what it is so we can get the audience to say
we
holy
take your
moly as well.
blood and, you need to be well. You don't want to be sick because you want to be healthy. And we want to really get the platelets. And so we take the blood and separate it as same stuff you're doing. But now we're injecting that blood into the area of what would be the G-spot, making it more sensitive. And it's also near the clitoral area because that can help with urinary incontinence too. It's not perfect for urinary incontinence, but man, it can help a lot of women. But what it does, what I tell women is so they understand when you put that PRP in that area, it rejuvenates that area. It's bringing in all these growth factors and healing factors, and it sensitizes the vagina. So the best way for me to tell you ladies is, like you can feel things that
you weren't feeling.
You may have slipped away from you, after, I always says that last baby.
Yeah.
Whether it's the first one is your last one or your second one or your fifth one, but it can happen. And some women, we just do it purely for greed. Why not? I mean, if you can have, more vaginal wetness, you can, do things like, I never would think that like in my 50s, I'm like, wow, this is what squirting is. Those are the kind of things like, yeah, like, wow.
It's a true thing.
It's a true thing.
It really does happen.
It's a true thing. I mean, not like what they show on those videos, you guys. That's a bit like, who knows? But, when we're talking about porn. But it is really a wonderful thing for women. And then helping women to understand that vaginal orgasms, I used to say, I want my multiples. And then I'm not talking about vitamins. Like you could have so many of them that, you transcend your body. I mean, because our minds are so powerful. And so, but the O-shot is just, it's an amazing thing. And I would just say to someone, get one.
What about... I don't mean to, but I got a couple more things I really got to fire off.
Yeah.
PT 141. What do you think about that?
So, PT 141, it's a peptide. And when it first came out, I wasn't as interested in it because it said you couldn't have alcohol with it. And I was like, sex and alcohol go together. It got me in a lot of trouble. So, which is why I don't meet men at bars to this day because something bad is going to happen. So, and that's not good. So, and I've had mixed results with it. I think if you combine it with oxytocin, the two of them work much, much better together. So, and it's really,
nasal spray, right?
Mm-hmm, it can be. It's a nasal spray, and
injection,
or an injection, and I call it stacking because some of us, need stacking. Where I've seen it not work as well is when I'm dealing with people who have sexual trauma, because sexual trauma is real. Whether it was, you were actually, assaulted or if they just did a lot to mess with your mind. Mm-hmm. And so that's where that O shot comes in. And I've seen it take women who were sexual abuse victims, and they actually got better with each one. So I let them know they're going to need multiple O shots. Because I once had a patient, she had a lot of pelvic pain, and they did a hysterectomy on her. They kind of piecemealed her, then they took her ovaries, and she was young. And she was coming to me for an O shot, and after I finished her O shot, I really had a conversation with her, and it broke my heart because I found out she was a sexual abuse victim. And that's where all the pain was coming from.
Yeah.
And so, it's really important because, women, we're like an onion. We've got lots of layers. Men, we're onions. We got lots of layers. But I'm telling you, the more you peel those layers open, the more you're going to find, because that's how we were made to be. So, which I think is, awesome about being a woman. But if I can come back, I think I want to be a man now that I'm 60. Men have all the powers, to me, but that's another story. So, the O shot it's amazing. I also got into vaginal rejuvenation, and we talk about, the word ED. Everybody knows what that is. I remember when erectile dysfunction first came out, when Viagra first came out, it was like a shun, and it was a bad thing. But that is still going on with vaginal rejuvenation.
Absolutely.
If you say that around women, they make snickers, they joke, they go, "Oh, you need that. No, you need that. I'm not going to that. Why would you? I don't need that." And it's like, girl, you need that. You're not even, come on. Why wouldn't you?
Or it's looked at like you're a promiscuous, or you want to be, it's not like that at all. It's more than that.
Yeah. I mean, when I there's different ways of doing it. And I wanted one that used radio frequency because I just love RF. I think radio frequency is safe and it's just going to boost collagen production. And I didn't think I needed it either, but it was nice for somebody to say, I noticed you scream a lot more since you had those Thormivas. And I was like, yeah.
Thormivas is what these are called, and it's an insert in the office.
Yes.
It's
a little wand, and it's pretty long, like about that, but you only put this much inside, and the tip of it has RF on it, and it's really using radio frequency to heat up the tissue. And people have used it for vaginal dryness. I have found that probably if you have somebody who's older and she has a lot of vaginal dryness, like especially if she's 60 or 70, 80, you might not want to do that because they already have tightness and you don't want to make it tighter. But if you have someone who's saying, I like to say, women kind of after having babies, we go here, and men kind of, they shrink. Nobody told you that would happen. I was like, oh, it's a way to meet in the middle, right?
Yes.
So, but it can help to tighten up the vagina and, like I said, with improve the sensitivity. So, my tagline became, when I told one of my patients, she gave it to me. She was like, all right now, Dr. Keller, get it right, get it tight. I said, that's what I'm going to call it. Get it right, get it tight with Thormiva.
Yes.
So,
because a lot of women, they lose that.
And when we talk about what to do for the vagina, I was using DHEA well before Intrarosa came out. In fact, that's how I met Dr. Carroll, because there was a speaker and I had a lot of questions. I'd been using it for maybe 7 or 8 years, and she was, from Johns Hopkins, and I was like, oh, wow. And this woman could not answer my questions. I knew way more about it than she did. Dr. Carroll recognized that, and she was like, because she needed to do her what is it? Nurse practitioner. She needed to rotate, and I normally don't teach anybody anything. I'm like, I learned all this stuff. I'm not teaching anybody anything, but I liked her, and so she was like, would you let me do a preceptorship with you? And I said, sure. But DHEA is amazing, and it works for vaginal rejuvenation. Even if you've had breast cancer, you can use it. And so I saw a study that compared it to estradiol, and it outperformed it. So I said, biopsies before and afterwards. So I said, wow, this is, because I was scared of estrogen, because I was like, I'd been told estrogen's going to cause breast cancer. I was scared of breast cancer. Only cancer I ever was scared of, I got it. How did that happen? I barked that to myself. But I used to be like, oh, I can't get too many mammograms, I might get breast cancer. Oh, I don't want to use estrogen, I might get breast cancer. But, meanwhile, I can have that cookie and the cake and all this stuff that I shouldn't be putting into my body that also that was my stress response.
Yeah.
But, and so different strokes for different folks, right? So you can use DHEA in the vagina and you don't even need a prescription.
There's some amazing things out there.
Yeah.
And the world is opening up. And I hope that our raw conversation today.
Yes, please, ladies, don't be afraid of hormones.
Don't be afraid of hormones.
Because
so many women in here
look at
won't
the
go.
literature. These women, be afraid when you're in your 60s of getting dementia. I mean, there's once that happens to you, it's over. I mean, if you could take something that could lower your risk 20 to 30%, might be worth it, right? And if hormones cause cancer, breast cancer, why is it that we don't see it until women hit menopause when the hormones have gone away? We see more cancer, not all.
Absolutely.
So, there was the doctor who trained me, Dr. Glazier, used testosterone to treat breast cancer. In fact, when I called her, she was like, you don't even have to do the chemo, Dr. Keller. You could just do the testosterone only. And I was like, no, I'm doing everything. So, because that was what was best for me. Anybody else who said they wanted to purely use testosterone, I would respect that, okay? And so, but testosterone is an amazing hormone. It builds bones, estrogen builds bones.
Can convert to estrogen?
It can, but I have to tell you this.
You haven't seen a whole lot of that?
More in the premenopausal woman. So if I have a premenopausal woman, and she comes in and I see her estradiol is 300 and something, I'm like, ooh, I probably need to block this. So I'll use an estrogen blocker in that person because they may end up with a lot of breast tenderness. And there's nothing worse than having your breast being on fire and aching from all the estrogen stimulation. But when women hit menopause, I've not seen, I still got to give them estrogen. If that were the case, I'd only have to use testosterone, and that's not the case. So, like I said, I tell all of you all, it's your world. I want to live in it.
Yeah.
What do you want to do? Because some women will say, Dr. Keller, I really don't, I'm not sexually active, but I still want testosterone for what it's going to help with my muscles, to build my muscles and my bones. And I forget sometimes, I think everybody's doing it for sex. And then they remind me, I'm not having sex. And I go, wow, your levels are through the roof. And you're not interested? No. But you know what? That happened to me when I was on got that diagnosis. I remember I started out about 100 milligrams, and then I said, well, let me try 120. And I was like, ooh. I said, let me try 125. Woo. Let me try 130. Ooh. Doorknobs are looking good. We need to dial this back. That's too much. I remember one of my patients taught me that because she said, Dr. Keller, you need to lower my dose. I said, your levels are looking really good. This is awesome. Where I went, she said, doorknobs are looking good. I said, we're going to lower your dose. Yeah, that's crazy.
What about couples? And then we're going to wrap it up. So it's important for couples to be on the same page, I think, and see, right?
Yeah, power couples.
Yeah,
that's
because
what I call them.
You don't want one wound up and one not. And that's where problems can come in. I recommend you find somebody. If you're in Henderson, Nevada, and you're a couple, you can find somebody that can manage you guys together because it's really important to be on the same page when you're married.
I recently put on my Instagram, I read a letter from a patient thanking me. She came to me from Orange County. So I have two ladies actually that they drive all the way in to see me to get their pellets because I don't know what the issues were here, but there were issues and it was related to, I think, labs just like milking them for the money.
Yes.
And I was like, we don't need all that, and I like testing labs. I think it's important to test. So, I like to say test, don't guess, right? So, and there are a lot of people who are doing hormones and who are just giving them and they're not checking your levels. Well, I don't know if everything's working if I don't check your levels. We need to do that, and we can do it with blood. We don't have to do saliva. So, because that's expensive, and if we can get the insurance companies to pay for some of this, like the lab testing, that's important too. So, but looking at the whole picture, I just don't want to give you hormones. I want to make sure that your liver's doing good, your kidneys are doing good, your cholesterol is looking
right
good.
Path, right? Your cortisol pathway, all that stuff.
Yes, I'm paying attention to your blood pressure, and then, when we start talking about the other peptides, which I have to just thank you for what you taught me. about microdosing and breaking the dose up for, the tirzepatide, because that has been a game changer for people.
Absolutely.
And not just
more than weight loss.
Yes. I mean, I'm seeing transformations that are just blowing me away, especially in men. The number one killer, everybody's scared of cancer, but the number one killer is heart disease, you guys. And these hormones can help with that. And if you've got metabolic imbalances like, prediabetes, all of us, I heard this doctor say 93% of us have insulin resistance.
Absolutely. It's cellular level. It's not going to show up.
Yeah.
But the minute you put them on a little tiny dose of a GLP-1 or GIP, their world is changed. Inflammation goes away. Joint pain goes away. It's incredible.
And you see it in the blood work. That's the part that blows me away. It makes me go, oh my God, I can't, and quickly. I mean, when I see a person's hemoglobin A1C go from 9.3, which is very high, dangerous, to 6.8 in 6 weeks.
It's crazy, huh?
Unbelievable.
It's
unbelievable.
Crazy.
And they've only been on the 5 milligram dose Manjaro for 2 weeks. They started with 2.5 and they, so it is.
And what it does to the brain as well. I mean, this is pretty incredible stuff.
Inflammation.
The inflammation and just that sound, that hedonic sound of wanting to do something all the time or eat the chatter for food. And that's what got people in that place anyways. And this retrains the brain, we're finding out. So it's kidney protective, it's cardio protective.
And it's important for me, I use a scale that basically looks at body composition. So you can't just come in and step on a regular scale and like you lost a pound.
It's not about
that.
But
then I'm like, man, you killed it. And they go, why are you so happy? I said, because you lost 10 pounds of fat. Your visceral fat has gone from 18 to 15. How did you, men are the ones who do that. How did you do that? Wow, I'm so impressed. And so to see people becoming healthier, that is the goal. The goal is not like to get skinnier. The goal is to be healthier.
Yep. So, health span and health wellness. The word longevity is, we're throwing it around a lot, but it's really not how long you live, it's how well you live it, right?
Yeah. And my one of my taglines I came up was live long, live strong, live agelessly. I mean, that's what it's all about. We want to be stronger. We want to live longer. And I don't want to feel old. I mean, I love for someone to say, you don't walk like a 60-year-old woman. Well, thank God. I should look like you right now. I did chemo, radiation.
Right.
But I tell you, a lot of it is, it's not just the fact that, the hormones are important, but also the supplements, which I'm looking at some supplements over here, because supplements are really, really important, and not the ones you get in the grocery store.
Importance of individualized care, right? Dr. Maria, if anybody's interested and you're in Henderson, you want to fly out because it's Las Vegas, you could have a fun weekend and go see her.
Or we could do it by telephone.
Oh, she can do it by telephone too.
So your first visit, and I'm doing free consultations because I'm just building my business. I'm like, I can talk to you. I'll give you 15 minutes. You get 8. I got 7 or 7 or 8.
I love it.
And so, and you tell me your story.
Amazing
because,
everything.
we're trying to do things like reverse autoimmune diseases. I mean, it's like, that's something that a lot of people need help with, or digestive issues, all kind of stuff.
Didn't tell you this, and I'm going to talk about it now because I have spoken about it before. I'm doing an acne trial right now on oral peptides and injectable peptides.
Oh, nice.
With huge success.
Nice.
So far.
Oh, I can't wait to learn, because that is something to really be able to help,
clear skin, and that's all hormones too. And that is also metabolic health.
Yes.
So
all disease begins in the gut.
We have our little, she's got him in the back. So we're going to wrap it up, but I'm having you back on again.
Okay.
Because you're just too much fun, and we get to hang out anyways.
We're
going to the peptide convention in Vegas. I'm coming up to
Congress
see you guys.
Is going to be amazing.
Super excited.
That's on Friday and Saturday. And Saturday.
Find a provider that stays engaged, educated, and doesn't just, one-stop shop. Get your labs done. Get an informative one-on-one with your provider. And here we go. Look at this. This is my favorite part.
Yeah, I've never studied so much until I started doing this kind of medicine.
Here we go. So at the Beauty Outlaw, Dr. Maria, we always have to toast to health span and well span.
Yes.
And we'll do that with the most toxic thing, champagne.
No, it's not toxic.
We love it. It's great. It's from France, so it's
Yes.
really more
Ooh,
healthy.
Nice.
Thank you for being my friend. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you for the honor
your
of inviting me.
beautiful story and the amazing things that you've done for women's health. You are basically a standout. You're not willing to say anything that you don't edit yourself, put it that way. And we have to do that because we have a generation of women to save.
I say this to people. You want a better doctor? Let your doctor get sick because it will make you a better doctor because you have to find the way to a lot of things that I did to make myself better. My doctors didn't tell me and they just didn't mention it. Like when I'm doing chemotherapy, I was freezing my scalp to keep my hair. And I was like, wonder if I eat ice. And guess what? Food tasted good. I started chewing ice an hour before the chemo, 4 hours afterwards, and I could eat food.
Amazing.
Took a probiotic. I said, well, I wonder if I don't want to get diarrhea. I looked it up. Literature supports all this. These are the simple things.
Simple things that we can help people with in mainstream medicine and we're not. So we need to you listen up, mainstream. I know you guys want to know more. So it's up to you to serve your patient and to help them.
CSI.
Yeah,
you
medicine.
It's
I love
up to
it.
me to figure it out. I can't blame the victim.
No,
people
absolutely.
come to us for help.
That's right.
And guidance. And so we have to do that. We have to if I don't know what it is, then I have to be honest and say, I always say a good doctor is a doctor that knows when they don't know.
Yep.
You can't know it all, but know when you don't know.
Know when
and
you don't know.
be honest enough to say, I don't know, but I'm going to try to figure this one out. I bet you I know somebody who does know.
And we do. Thank you, Dr. Maria.
Thank you.
See you on the next episode of The Beauty Outlaw. Thanks for being here today. I hope you learned something.